Things look chaotic when you look at them closely, but if you zoom out far enough, you'll see the pattern.
Patterns are how I think our minds subconsciously work. It's kind of the basis of everything around us.
I see realms of chaos and order inside of each other. I once saw a video that these Norwegian scientists made, which used electron microscope pictures spliced together, and the camera would zoom in on the surface of the hammer, and as the surface got closer and closer, eventually you would see the terrain of the surface as a vast mountainscape full of texture and pockets of space and strange surfaces. And as the zoom continued, it would take one little ridgeline on one of those mountains, and then you would zoom in on that ridgeline, it would become a vast different space full of writhing different types of structures and forms. And I see that with chaos and order. From one vantage point, it may appear to be chaotic. Then you kind of take a closer look and zoom in on an aspect, and you see that there is actually a pattern inside of that, and it makes a certain sense.
If you look at a shoreline and you see the water hitting the sand and receding back and forth, you'll think, wow, that's a chaotic thing happening there. If you start zooming out and you start going up 30,000 feet and looking down, you'll just see that the shoreline is actually this fractally pattern, and it does it over and over again.
As in nature, there's conflict and kind of a struggle or some type of opposing forces that are present, hence the kind of explosive aesthetic that appears in the work. The balance of conscious and unconscious decisions and scale, how you can be looking at maybe the inside of a cell or some angle of the universe.
On the most superficial level, the collaborating with people is just really fun.
We've known each other for like a decade, and we also influence heavily. There's a lot of feedback loops of information that happen where we have our own strong sensibilities and talents. And it's one of those things you just couldn't have really planned for.
There was an unspoken magic that happened. There was a support coming from the side that isn't usually there when you're working alone.
What's great about painting with those guys is we all kind of share the similar idea where we're not painting from life, we're kind of painting from our imaginations. It's really cool to see how other people go about doing that.
We are always kind of learning from the other and also teaching.
To see how someone else would react to where you maybe left off was stirring up and kicking off a whole different train of thinking of where to go next with the project.
It's just one of the best painting classes I've ever had in my life. I learned more painting with these guys in the last few years than the previous 10.
Each of us who've been working together has a very similar body of subject, but we approach it from extremely different technical methods. Being able to work with them on collaborative projects is a way to pick up a completely different technique, talking about a certain kind of subject, whether it be a certain way of dealing with space or form or composition. We may have all had a similar view of what the finished product looks like, but our ways of getting there have been tremendously different. Mario has a very unique way of working with the palette that I had never seen before and never knew about before. I saw his paintings, but I had no idea how that kind of color effect was achieved. And to see the way he works a palette has been hugely inspiring to me.
Mario will work on something for hours and hours, rendering it, getting it so juicy and it's there in space. You can see it. You can almost walk around it, And then with Oliver, what you tend to see is a lot of really loose brush strokes.
Oliver has this acrobatic kind of sense of balance and flow that's amazing. Me and Damon are always kind of mystified that, almost like someone doing Tai Chi. Damon has this hyper crisp one shot with a pen.
Damon has a way of working with pattern that is very systematic and diagrammatic and he approaches it from a very well thought out technical method. That's a great thing for me to witness because I'm also interested in similar types of patterns, but I don't go about them in a systematic way. For me, it's more about a pattern beginning and then breaking off on a chaos tangent. Damon's way of having a stick-to-itiveness to go through an entire system of a pattern and bring it through its completeness has been really inspiring to me.
You know, the title of the show, Cosmic Terrain, is kind of an analogy to this off-road approach that we take, where it's not just in gallery spaces and kind of that environment where it'll be allowed to be more rogue, where it's not so predictable. People seeing the work happen in front of them is almost like peeking behind the curtain.
People see paintings or see people painting. The intricacies of this activity, you know, you only know it when you do it a lot.
Digging deep in the universe within and projecting it outward, letting it do its thing on the outside.
Be here now. It's that's probably the most important lesson you can take away from all of this is being in the moment as much as possible. All the other bullshit is meaningless.